Delighted to be here. My agenda is to be as much of a resource for you folks as I can be for the time that we have. It's always the most fun when I feel most used. So very happy to run me through the grinder and take advantage of what I might be able to share with you. Let me just start out by saying you all get things done. I was listening to the radio this morning. What, your stock price in the last... excuse me. This is, about as cool as it gets in terms of getting things done. So why are you in here? Maybe it's the stress of opportunity. Do you know Wall Street was more stressed out in the 90s than it was after the recession? Because they were afraid the competition might be getting there at 3 o'clock in the morning instead of 4, so they just stayed. In a strange way, when you're in crisis, you get to relax because you don't have to think. That's really, I think, what GTD, the nerve that it hit, is what is the, as someone very actually elegantly called it, knowledge work athletics. What is the thinking that we need to do? Now, we all do it. We all sort of do it intuitively. What I've done is bring to more conscious awareness what the thinking process is that facilitates our ability to get things done. Quite simply, you need to know what done means and what doing looks like. But that is not in a Gmail. Any of you ever opened any one of your emails and it suddenly, by opening it and starting to read it, it suddenly goes ding, 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 ding. By opening and reading and accepting this email, here is the outcome you have now committed to about this. And here is the very next action step you must take to move toward closure to keep that commitment. Any of you get emails like that? It'd be tough enough, even if that was all clear. You got a lot. But no, each one of those, inside of all of that, we all have to make those decisions. That's the thinking process that has to go on to determine meaning. A lot of what GTD was about was, wait a minute, what is it that we really need to clarify out there in order to be able to surf on top of this game instead of feel buried by it? So if you're like me, I am a fellow student, by the way. Every single thing I'm going to share with you today, I fall off the wagon regularly and fast. By the way, it's very easy to fall off the GTD wagon, for those of you who are familiar with this. It's very easy to get back on. It's very easy to get out of control. Very easy to get back on, as long as you know how to do that. So a lot of what I did was just make more conscious the process of how we get back on in case you get off. So if you're on, this will just be a reminder about how you got there. A lot of people get on but don't know how they got there. They go, wow, I'm on. What happened? Then they fall off and they go, oh, damn, what happened? As opposed to understanding, here's why I'm on, here's what I did that created that, that's actually a duplicatable event once you figure that out. So that's kind of what I did, was figure that out. And a lot of this is kind of after the fact. I'm really a behavioralist. I didn't start with theory and then try to make that work. I started with what works toward making things happen easier, faster, whatever. And then kind of backed up and said, wait a minute, what's the principle that lies behind that? For instance, have any of you in here sort of felt your back up against the wall and felt yourself sort of confused and a bit overwhelmed, and you sat down and you made a list and you felt a little bit better? Anybody ever do that? If you'd figured out why that works, you'd never keep anything in your head the rest of your life. Just most people have to feel really bad before they do things that make them feel a little bit better. But if you actually figured out why that works, you'd realize your brain is not for holding commitments. It doesn't function very well that way. And that's why, writing it down, nothing changed out here, but something changed about how you're engaged with that by distributed cognition, as the scientists now call that. I had a psychologist go through one of my seminars. She said, gee, David, you know what this is? I said, what is that? She said, distributed cognition. I went, you mean write it down? She said, well, that's another way to say it. Okay. Well, we laugh, but you've only seen the tip of the iceberg. In terms of people understanding the value of getting things out of the psyche to be able to then negotiate with it in a much more objective, elevated level than to be in it. And I think we're still at the beginning of sort of testing out, exploring, and researching what those tools are that facilitate us freeing ourselves up for what the brain is really designed to do, which is intuitive, your intuition, your intelligence. No system can do that. Now, you engineers are going to say, I want to find a better way to automate GTD. So, fabulous. I don't care how much of an AI expert you are, how much of a macro freak in your software you are, you're not going to write a program that when you run it, it says, call Fred. You might, but you're going to go, no, I'd rather have a beer. So systems can't tell you anything to do. They can, but you're not going to be able to trust it to tell you what to do. What a system can do is move you from hope to trust in those choices. And that's really what GTD was. That was the promise of what this was all about. Basically, as Renee, and thanks Renee for the introduction, Renee sort of gave you, she said, David, what do you want to talk about? I said, well, here's kind of my topic du jour. First of all, I'd like to frame GTD as the martial art it really is. It's the martial art of work and life, essentially, and the logic of that. So I'm going to walk you through the logic about why this stuff works when you work it. And then, ultimately, why it solves the two aspects, or it facilitates your ability to enhance the two aspects of essentially managing yourself. Control and perspective, by the way. Those are the two. We'll talk about those, the matrix. When you overlay those against each other, you'll see that, and they need very different things to do. There are different things to do that get you in control and different things to do that give you perspective. They're not the same animal. Talk about why the models that I sort of synthesized and pulled together facilitate control and perspective. And as you're going to see, folks, come on, and some of you who've intersected, how many of you have intersected with GTD to some degree? You've either read the book or been to a seminar or something like that. Okay. By the way, if you haven't, that's not a prerequisite. If you have, this will be a reminder of what you probably saw but didn't quite see yet. I need reminders of this regularly. It seems to be this onion I can keep peeling deeper and deeper, and we'll see more aspects of it. But I'll share with you the two very simple models that we facilitate. Now, each one of those, you can drill into it in quite a bit of sophistication and detail. So happy to range further into that detail if we have the time to do that. And I certainly, I don't want to spend too much time just sort of talking at you. I do want to open it up and dialogue with you, because trust me, there are as many different applications and implications of this material as there are people sitting in this room. GTD, a lot of people have called this life-changing in terms of truly how they changed, how they just dealt with getting up in the morning and dealing with work and life. And a lot of people just like the tips and tricks. Usually the younger you are, the more you're interested in the tips or tricks. Life changing my life, fine. Come on, I'm too busy to be worried about improving my life. But as you kind of say, yeah, but now as you sort of get up and start to have kids and want to play golf and want to do some other things, oftentimes, wait a minute, there is a whole different approach here that can facilitate my ability to keep a lot more plates spinning at a lot more sophisticated level without upping the stress level. And when that starts to be of importance to you, that's where the heat's, that's where you start to see the value of these models. For instance, I doubt if many of you need to understand gravity or automobiles any better than you currently do. You can probably make it through the rest of your life real cool without understanding those gravity or cars any better than you do, unless you're hired as a formula racer. Then you damn well better understand cars and gravity better than the average bear. So the same is true with work. You don't need to understand the martial art of work if the heat ain't on. But if you jump yourself into or throw yourself into places and opportunities that will challenge you to the edge, that's when the elegance of the martial art and the moves and understanding that and seeing how they work and making more conscious can make a big difference. That's what we've seen with these models. And I'll talk a little bit about the GTD phenomenon. I'm as much bemused by it as many other people are. I just said at some point, it took me 25 years to figure out what I'd figured out. Because I thought everybody had figured this out before me. I was trying to catch up with the rest of the world that I thought had already done this. Then one day I looked around and went, nobody else has done this. What happened? So my game was just to sort of write the book, create a website, throw this out there, put my spin on this, and see who saluted. I was willing to take this as small as it wanted to be or as big as the world wanted it. Well, the world keeps saying, gee, this is cool, we want more. So now I figured I was going to take the next 25 years to figure out how to educate the world, or at least give them the tools to facilitate the implementation of this. And I don't consider myself really an expert at that yet at all. So you can help us, and you are, by the way. By the way, I understand the purpose of this company is basically to provide, to create, essentially make information accessible to everybody on the planet, right? All the information that there is. So the information overload people are in deep trouble, right? And people say information overload, what about information? It's not information overload. If information overload was the issue, you'd walk into a library and die, right? I mean, the first time you surf the web, you just blow up. Actually, the first time you walk through nature, you'd blow up. That's why nature is so relaxing, is because of the infinite variety of information that it feeds your brain. Actually, you go weird when you get in a room with no information. It's called sensory deprivation. So the truth is, your brain actually relaxes with the more horizons that it can range in, that will map to the sophistication of whatever that computer is in there. Interestingly enough. But it's not information overload, it's potential meaning overload. Potential meaning. Each one of those emails you're getting has potentially a snake or a berry or something inside it, but it's not evident when you first see that email. That's the problem. So you start to add all the potential meaning. What if you walked into nature and anything could eat you, bite you? You know, it's like, God, that would be like, I'm not going out there. So let's talk about the martial art. I want to give you an idea of the martial art. And I did have a background in karate, so it actually was interesting to find the analogy. It seemed to hold very well with work. Work is an art. I'll be bold enough to tell you GTD described the art of work. Most people just work. They don't realize what the art of that work process is. By the way, I use work in a very universal sense. Anything you want to get done that ain't done yet, that's work. You know, so buy a company or buy a dog. They're both work. Trust me. So work's not a pejorative to me. I also don't even have a distinction between life and work. You know, I'll talk about that too. That's where this is going, is that's going to dissolve if it hasn't already, in terms of you. But the martial art, martial deals with surprise. Martial deals with surprise. I mean, not that the other art forms, you're not also dealing with surprise in some interesting way, but martial says you could be walking down a dark alley and 4 people jump you don't expect. So your training in the martial art will then reflect how good you are with surprise and allocation of energy and surprise. From my experience, a lot of your competitive edge is your ability to deal with surprise, personally and organizationally. The organizations that can't deal with the stuff that wasn't expected are not around or look very different than they did before. So it is a martial art. Now, there is an image in the martial arts that I use, I refer to a good bit, mind like water. Grasshopper, mind like water. What does that mean? Well, throw something into a pond. How does the water respond to input? Totally appropriate. You throw in a pebble, it does pebble response. Real simple. Back to calm and balanced again, ready for the next input, right? Throw in a boulder, what does it do? Boulderness. It doesn't do pebbleness, it does boulderness perfectly. Back to calm and balanced again, ready for the next input. The water's not confused to how to deal with stuff. Also, the water's not tensing up before the rock hits it. It's not going, oh damn, here comes a rock. It just goes, rock. What does that have to do with anything? Well, I don't know if you're aware of it, but the power in a karate punch comes from speed, not muscle. But if you're distracted, hung up, and not fully present and available, you are not totally relaxed. You're not totally relaxed, you lose speed. So a simple definition, if you will, about mind like water, and see if you can translate this into your professional world or just into your world. Perfectly appropriate response to and engagement with whatever's present. But let me ask you, and you don't need to raise your hand, just internally answer this question. Have you ever taken one meeting to the next? Ever taken home to work, work to home? It's probably because you then are not fully available to that new thing with your full resources. There's some part of you that's, you know, if I could see psychically, I can't, but if I could, most people would look like Pigpen. You know, the cartoon character with this cloud of stuff spinning around them. You know, that's been going on that is potentially clouding their ability to see, their ability to respond to the next thing, new thing, appropriately, with all their resources at hand. And I will suggest that your ability to generate power, whatever that means to you, but essentially your ability to be effective in any way, shape, or form has an awful lot to do with your ability to concentrate. It's just physics. You concentrate electricity, it gets more powerful. You concentrate. So there's a sense of concentration. However, your ability to concentrate is directly proportional to your ability to eliminate distraction. Any of you ever been distracted, by the way? Yeah. What did that do to your productivity, by the way? Now, who distracts you more than anybody?